I stood frozen at the doorway, champagne glass trembling in my hand. There on the dance floor, surrounded by our friends, Mark was on one knee, holding up the exact emerald-cut diamond I'd once pointed out in a jewelry store window. But it wasn't my finger he was sliding it onto. It was Olivia's, his ex, who dumped him 3 years ago, who'd suddenly reappeared last month looking for closure. As everyone cheered, his eyes caught mine across the room. That's when his smile faltered just for a second. Because he remembered. He remembered who'd stayed through his darkest days. Who'd rebuilt his heart piece by piece. I dropped my promise ring in his champagne glass on my way out. Before we get into it, tap subscribe. Let's hit 100K together and drop your city. Now, let's move on to the story. The late September air hit my face as I stepped onto the rooftop terrace. My silver dress catching the last light of sunset. Mark's 30th birthday celebration, meticulously planned over 3 months, with his sister Chloe, was in full swing. String lights twinkled overhead, casting a warm glow over the Manhattan skyline behind us. Elena, you look stunning. Chloe grabbed my arm, champagne sloshing in her glass. He has no idea you're the mastermind behind all this. Best girlfriend award goes to you. I smiled, running my finger over the delicate promise ring Mark had given me 6 months ago. Soon to be more than just a girlfriend, I thought, remembering the jewelry store browser history I'd accidentally discovered on our shared iPad last week. After 3 years together, I knew something significant was coming. Where's the birthday boy? I asked, scanning the crowd of Mark's investment firm colleagues and our mutual friends. He was just by the bar with Jason, Chloe said, but her expression suddenly shifted. That's weird. Olivia's here. My stomach tightened. Olivia, Mark's college sweetheart, who'd shattered him by leaving for London 3 years ago, right before I met him at that gallery opening. The woman whose name he'd called out in his sleep during our first year together. Olivia, are you sure? My voice remained steady, though my heartbeat didn't. She's supposed to be in London. Came back last month. Chloe frowned. Mark said they met for coffee. Closure, he called it. I didn't think he'd invite her tonight. I hadn't known about any coffee or her return to New York. The crowd began to shift, forming a circle near the dance floor. Something was happening. The DJ lowered the music, and I heard excited murmurs ripple through the guests. Elena, come on. Chloe tugged my arm. I think Mark's about to make a speech. We pushed through the crowd together, but Chloe somehow slipped ahead while I got stuck behind a group of Mark's coworkers. When I finally broke through, champagne glass in hand, the scene before me stopped time itself. Mark was on one knee, a small velvet box open in his palm, and standing before him, hand covering her mouth in theatrical surprise, was Olivia, statuesque, golden-haired, wearing a red dress that seemed designed to command attention. 3 years ago was the biggest mistake of my life, Mark was saying, his voice carrying across the now silent rooftop. Getting that call from you last month felt like the universe giving us a second chance. My brain tried to process the impossibility of what was happening. Last month, the same month he'd surprised me with weekend trips and spontaneous gifts. The same month we talked about our future children's names. This ring, he continued, removing a stunning emerald-cut diamond that caught the light in a way that seemed cruelly familiar, is exactly what you described wanting all those years ago. But it wasn't. It was the ring I had pointed out to him in a jeweler's window on 5th Avenue last Christmas. The one I'd said reminded me of my grandmother's engagement ring. Someone bumped into me, and my champagne sloshed onto my wrist. I barely noticed. Every eye was on the fairy tale reunion unfolding before us, while I stood witnessing my 3-year relationship disintegrate in real time. Olivia Quinn. Mark's voice wavered with emotion. I'd never heard him direct at me. Will you marry me? Her yes was swallowed by cheers and applause. Champagne corks popped. Someone started a countdown to midnight, though it was barely 10 o'clock p.m. Apparently, any excuse To celebrate the perfect couples. Reunion. Through the chaos, Mark's eyes finally found mine across the crowd. For just a second, his expression faltered. Recognition, remembrance, perhaps even guilt. Then Olivia pulled his face toward hers for a kiss, and the moment broke. Chloe appeared at my side, her face pale with shock. Elena, I swear I had no idea. He told me he was planning something special tonight, but I thought. Her voice cracked. I thought it was for you. I nodded mechanically, unable to form words. 3 years of memories flashed through my mind. Holding Mark's hand through his father's funeral, nursing him through pneumonia. When he was too weak to stand, listening to him practice presentations at 3 a.m. before big client meetings. I had rebuilt him piece by piece after Olivia left, only for him to offer the finished product back to her. Mark was making his way toward me now, Olivia's hand firmly in his. A strange smile on his face, like this was some awkward social situation we could smooth over with polite conversation. Elena, he started, his voice straining for casualness. You remember Olivia? I looked between them at his nervous smile and her curious, victorious gaze, and felt something snap clean inside me. Without a word, I twisted off the promise ring he'd given me, dropped it into his half-empty champagne glass with a small plink, and walked away. Behind me, I heard him call my name once, twice, but no footsteps followed. Even now, she was still his choice. I barely remember leaving the rooftop. The elevator ride down 30 floors was a blur. My reflection in the mirrored walls showing a woman I hardly recognized. Mascara forming delicate tributaries down her cheeks. Lipstick smudged from biting down to keep from screaming. The night air hit me like a slap when I stumbled onto the sidewalk. I fumbled for my phone, hands shaking so badly I could barely unlock it. Why? My voice broke when my best friend answered. Can I come over right now? Elena, what's wrong? Aren't you at Mark's? He proposed to Olivia. A beat of silence. Then I'll order pizza and open wine. Lots of wine. 20 minutes later. Maya's door swung open before I could even knock. One look at my face and she pulled me into a fierce hug. That absolute garbage fire of a human being. She whispered into my hair. I'll destroy him. That made me laugh through my tears. Maya, all 5 feet 2 inches of her threatening to destroy a man who spent 2 hours at the gym daily. No, seriously, she continued, pulling me inside her cozy apartment. I know people. My cousin Ricky still works for that pest control company. We could infest his fancy penthouse with bed bugs. They're practically impossible to get rid of. Pa. I collapsed onto her sofa, wiping mascara from under my eyes. Too subtle? Fine. I also know a guy who could hack his work email, send some inappropriate messages to his boss, maybe some questionable websites on his search history. I laughed again despite myself. You're terrible. I'm creative, she corrected, pouring a generous glass of red wine and handing it to me. Now tell me everything. So, I did. About the ring I'd shown him last Christmas. About Olivia's secret return a month ago. About the coffee meetings he'd never mentioned. With each detail, Maya's expression darkened. You know what the worst part is? I asked, staring into my wine. I actually thought he was going to propose to me tonight. I found the jewelry store in his browser history last week. Oh, honey. Maya squeezed my hand. 3 years, Maya. 3 years I spent picking up the pieces after she left him. And the whole time I was just what? A placeholder. The pizza arrived, but I couldn't eat. Instead, I pulled out my phone and began systematically deleting every photo of Mark and me together from my Instagram. What are you doing? Maya asked, mouthful of pizza. Erasing him, I said simply. Tomorrow I'm packing up everything he ever gave me, including that hideous lamp for your birthday. Especially that lamp. I managed a small smile. God, it was so ugly. Why did I pretend to love it for 2 years? Because You loved him, Maya said softly. My phone buzzed. Mark, I declined the call. It immediately rang again. He's persistent, Maya observed. Want me to answer and make farm animal noises? That made me laugh again. As tempting as that is, no. I turned off my phone. Completely. We stayed up until 3 a.m. Maya patiently listening as I oscillated between tears, rage, and numbness. At some point, we made a bonfire in her tiny fireplace with the few photos of Mark I had in my wallet. To new beginnings, Maya said, raising her glass. As the corner of Mark's smiling face curled and blackened in the flames. To self-respect, I added, feeling something shift inside me. The next morning, I woke on Maya's couch to 17 missed calls from Mark and twice as many texts, each more desperate than the last. Lena, please let me explain. It's not what you think. I never meant to hurt you. Can we please talk? Where are you? I'm worried about you. The final one sent at 4:58 a.m. I made a terrible mistake. Damn. Right you did, Maya said, reading over my shoulder while handing me coffee. I silenced my phone and opened my email. Instead, needing to check my work schedule for Monday. That's when I saw it. An email from Galerie Lumiere in Paris sent 3 weeks ago. Dear Miss Vasquez, we are pleased to offer you the position of Associate Curator following your impressive interview last month. I froze coffee mug halfway to my lips. Maya, I whispered. I got the job. What job? She asked, confused. The Paris position I applied for. The one Mark told me I'd never get because my French wasn't good enough. My hands were trembling again, but for an entirely different reason. They offered it to me 3 weeks ago, but you never saw the email. Maya's eyes narrowed with understanding. We share an email account for bills and travel, I said slowly. He would have seen it as soon as it came in. Maya took a deep breath. He hid your dream job from you. It hit me then. The night after I'd applied for the Paris position, Mark had suddenly started talking about our future together more seriously. The promise ring had appeared. A week later. He knew I'd choose him over Paris, I said, the realization like ice in my veins. He used that to keep me here while he reconnected with Olivia. Maya set her coffee down with a decisive click. Okay. Now we're definitely calling my cousin Ricky about those bed bugs. Instead of laughing, I found myself opening the email and clicking reply. My fingers hovered over the keyboard for just a moment before I began typing. Dear Miss DuPont, I apologize for my delayed response. If the position is still available, I would be honored to accept. As I hit send, a weight lifted from my chest. The weight of dreams I'd been willing to sacrifice for a man who'd never intended to choose me. What did you just do? Maya asked, eyes wide. I just chose myself, I said. And for the first time since stepping onto that rooftop, I smiled. 2 weeks passed. In a blur of preparation, I threw myself into tying up loose ends at the gallery, finding a subletter for my apartment, and reminding myself how to conjugate French verbs. The busier I stayed, the less time I had to think about Mark. Not that he'd made that easy. Flowers arrived daily at my workplace until I finally called the florist and asked them to donate any future deliveries to the hospital. His texts gradually evolved from apologetic to angry to desperate again. I read them all but responded to none. Chloe had reached out too, clearly caught between loyalty to her brother and genuine concern for me. I'd met her for coffee once, assuring her I didn't blame her for what happened. He's miserable, you know, she'd said, stirring her latte. Olivia left for London again 3 days after the party. Apparently, she just wanted to see if she could still get him to drop everything for her. And she could, I'd replied simply. The morning before my flight to Paris, I stopped by Café Nouveau near my gallery to grab one last perfect New York cappuccino. It was a Tuesday. 9:15 a.m. safe, I thought. Mark would be at work, trapped in his morning meeting with clients. I was wrong. Elena. His voice hit me just as I reached for my drink at the counter. I froze, then slowly turned to face him. Mark looked terrible. His usually immaculate appearance had deteriorated. Stubble darkened his jaw. Dark circles shadowed his eyes, and his designer shirt was wrinkled as if he'd slept in it. A petty part of me was satisfied. Can we talk? He asked, his voice. Please. The barista, Josie, who knew me as a regular, leaned over the counter. Everything okay, Elena? Want me to tell this guy to get lost? Mark looked shocked at the hostility from a complete stranger. Almost smiled. It's fine. Josie. Thanks. I turned to Mark. 5 minutes. We sat at a corner table as far from other customers as possible. Neither of us spoke immediately. I sipped my cappuccino, suddenly calm in a way I hadn't expected to be when finally face to face with him again. You look good, he finally said. I did look good. I'd gotten my hair cut into a sleek bob. Bought clothes that made me feel confident rather than clothes I thought Mark would like. Amazing how much energy I'd been directing toward being someone else's ideal. What do you want, Mark? I asked quietly. He ran a hand through his disheveled hair. To explain, to apologize. I don't even know anymore. He leaned forward, eyes pleading. It was a mistake, Elena. The biggest mistake of my life. Which part? Proposing to Olivia or dating me for 3 years? He flinched. That's not fair. No. What's not fair is building a life with someone while keeping your ex on the back burner. What's not fair is hiding a job offer because it didn't fit into your plans. His eyes widened. You know about Paris? I know everything. The deleted email. The business trips to London last year that coincidentally happened whenever Olivia was in town. Mark palled. How did you credit card statements? Mark, for someone who works in finance, you're surprisingly careless with your records. Josie appeared with a fresh cappuccino for me, deliberately ignoring Mark's half-empty cup. On the house, she said with a wink. For new beginnings. After she left, Mark leaned closer. It wasn't what you think with Olivia. She reached out, said she was in a bad place. We were just friends. Stop lying, I said, my voice deadly quiet. I saw the hotel charges. His shoulders sagged. It was only twice. I was weak. But I chose you, Elena. I stayed with you. No, Mark. You chose her. Every time she called, you went running. I was just convenient during the in-between times. That's not true. His voice rose, drawing glances from nearby tables. He lowered it again. Olivia and I have history. Yes, but what happened at my birthday? She manipulated me. She knew about the ring. Knew I was going to propose to you. And I held up my hand. Wait. She knew you were planning to propose to me. He hesitated, then nodded. So, you told your ex-girlfriend about your plans to propose to me before it happened? I needed advice on how to do it. She knows you. And I laughed then, a genuine laugh. That surprised even me. Oh my God, you really don't see it, do you? You've been playing us both. No, Elena, listen. He reached for my hand. I pulled it away. Olivia's gone for good this time. I broke it off with her the day after the party when I realized what a terrible mistake I'd made. I want you back. We can fix this. There's nothing to fix. Mark. I took a sip of my cappuccino, savoring the bitterness. I'm leaving for Paris tomorrow. I accepted the position at Galerie Lumiere. His face darkened. Paris, you can't be serious. Your French is barely conversational. You'll never make it there without you. I finished for him. Watch me. This is about Olivia, isn't it? You're punishing me for one mistake. No, Mark. This is about me finally doing what I should have done a long time ago. Prioritizing myself. I stood up, gathering my bag. The truth is, you never loved me. You loved how I made you Feel after Olivia destroyed your ego. I was safe. I was there. I would never leave you the way she did. That's not true, he said, but his eyes shifted away. I love you. Maybe you do in your way, but you loved her more. You always will. I pulled out my wallet and placed a $20 bill on the table. By the way, I know about the gambling debts, too. That's why you've been pushing for joint accounts, isn't it? Olivia's father was going to help bail you out if you got back with her. The shock on his face confirmed my suspicion. A theory Maya's brother, who worked at Mark's firm, had shared reluctantly when I pressed him for the truth. That's why you really proposed to her, wasn't it? Not for love, for money. Mark's face crumpled. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Goodbye, Mark, I said, turning to leave. Elena, wait. He grabbed my wrist. You can't just let go of her right now, buddy, came Jose's voice, sharp as a knife. She stood there, coffee pot in hand like a weapon. Or your next cappuccino might end up somewhere uncomfortable. Mark released me instantly, more shocked than intimidated. As I walked out the door, I heard him call after me. You'll be back. When Paris doesn't work out, you'll come back. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. For the first time in 3 years, I was moving forward without looking back. Non, Madam Chin, the lighting must be adjusted 3 degrees. The Marizo demands more warmth, more intimacy. I smiled to myself as I adjusted the track lighting above the delicate watercolor. 6 months in Paris had taught me that. Francois, the head curator at Gallery Lumiere, approached every exhibition like a theatrical production. His dramatic flair had initially intimidated me, but I'd grown to appreciate his perfectionism and even more his willingness to mentor me. Magnifi Elena, he declared, clapping his hands together. You have the eye, as they say. A natural instinct. Merci Francois, I replied. My French accent still flawed, but tremendously improved from when I'd arrived in January with little more than bonjour and Alia bibliothèque in my linguistic arsenal. My phone buzzed in my pocket. Maya on our weekly video call schedule. I checked my watch. Francois, may I take my lunch now? I have a call. He waved me away with GIC nonchalance. Go. But remember, we have the collectors preview at 6 where something spectacular. I hurried to the small courtyard behind the gallery, settling on a stone bench beneath a flowering cherry tree. Paris in July was warm but pleasant. Nothing like the sweltering steam bath New York would be right now. There she is, the Parisian art princess. Maya's face filled my screen, her Brooklyn apartment visible in the background. Hardly a princess, I laughed. Yesterday I had to unclog a toilet when one of our patrons' children flushed a toy car. Still glamorous by comparison. I spent yesterday making spreadsheets of spreadsheets. She leaned closer to the camera. You look different. Good. Different. Did you change your hair again? I touched the ends of my bob, now highlighted with subtle caramel streaks. A little, but it's not that. It's confidence. She decided. Paris agrees with you. She wasn't wrong. Something about starting over in a new city, speaking a new language, had forced me to become bolder, more decisive. The Elena, who had left New York 6 months ago, would never have approached gallery donors directly with acquisition proposals or negotiated with established artists for exhibition rights. How are things back home? I asked, though New York felt increasingly distant, like a city I'd visited rather than lived in for years. Maya's expression shifted. Well, since you asked, Mark came by my place last week. My stomach tightened, but not with the sharp pain I'd once felt at his name. More like the dull ache of an old injury in damp weather. What did he want? To know if I'd heard from you, if you were coming back. I sighed and I told him you were thriving in Paris and to lose my number. He grinned. Then I may have mentioned that you're dating a sexy French artist. Pa. I groaned. I'm not dating anyone. He doesn't know that. Besides, there was that sculptor guy at your opening. Fipe, we had coffee once. He spent the entire time talking about his ex-wife. Well, there's that cute guy from the cafe down the street who always gives you free pastries. Antoine is 65 and gives everyone free pastries. He's practically my Parisian grandfather. Maya rolled her eyes. Fine, be picky. But Mark doesn't need to know that. Her expression turned serious. He and Olivia are officially done, by the way. She's engaged to some British banking heir. Happened last month. I was surprised by my lack of reaction. 6 months ago, this news would have felt vindicating. Now it just seemed irrelevant. Oh, and Chloe wanted me to tell you she misses you. She broke up with Jason and started her own event planning business. Good for her, I said genuinely. Tell her I said hi. After catching up on Maya's job and her latest dating disasters, we said our goodbyes. I had just enough time to grab a quick lunch at my favorite cafe before returning to the gallery. As I waited for my croque-monsieur, I scrolled through my Instagram feed. Without consciously deciding to, I found myself typing Mark's name in the search bar. His most recent post was from a charity gala 3 days ago. He looked thinner, his smile not reaching his eyes as he posed with colleagues. The caption referenced new beginnings and lessons learned. I closed the app, feeling nothing but a distant pity for the man I'd once thought was my future. Voila, Madame L. The waiter set down my sandwich with a flourish. Mercy. Louis. Excuses, Ma, came a deep voice from behind me. May I join you? All the other tables are full. I looked up to find a tall man with wire-rimmed glasses and an armful of art books, gesturing to the empty chair across from me. He spoke English with an accent I couldn't quite place. Not French. Perhaps Italian or Spanish. Of course, I said, moving my bag to make space. I'm Alexander Morrow, he said, extending his hand. I own the small gallery on Ruse Saint Dominique. I was just admiring the catalog for your emerging artists exhibition. The curation is exquisite. I shook his hand, surprised. You've seen the exhibition? 3 times, he admitted with a smile. I was hoping to meet the associate curator responsible. Your juxtaposition of Lefebvre's sculptures with Nakamura's canvases was inspired. A warm flush of professional pride spread through me. Thank you. I'm Elena Chin, the associate curator you mentioned. His eyes lit up with genuine interest. The Elena Chin from the Visionary Spaces show in New York last year. I read your essay on spatial dynamics in contemporary installation art. I laughed, both flattered and taken aback. That's me, though I'm surprised anyone read that essay besides my former boss. It changed how I approach my own gallery space, he said sincerely. When I heard you'd moved to Paris, I hoped our paths might cross eventually. As we talked about art movements and exhibition strategies, I realized with surprise that 2 hours had passed. I would be late for the collector's preview. I have to get back to the gallery, I said, gathering my things. It was wonderful meeting you, Alexander. Perhaps we could continue this conversation over dinner sometime, he asked, his expression open and hopeful. Without the practice charm Mark had always wielded. I hesitated, memories of heartbreak flashing briefly before me. Then I remembered Francois's words from my first day. Paris is for beginnings. Elena. New art, new perspectives, new life. I'd like that, I said and meant it. As I hurried back to gallery Lumiere, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown international number. Bladed Mark. I'm coming to Paris next week. We need to talk. I've changed. Please give me a chance to prove it. 6 months ago, those words would have sent my heart racing. Today, I simply deleted the message without replying and walked into the gallery to prepare for my exhibition. Head high and gaze fixed firmly on the future spread before me. Like a blank canvas. New York looked different through the window of the taxi, smaller somehow, though no less vibrant. After nearly a year in Paris, I was back for the opening of my first solo curated exhibition, Fractured Perspectives, at the Bowman Gallery in Chelsea. Nervous, Alexander asked, his hand finding mine on the leather seat between us. I smiled at him, still sometimes surprised by how easily we'd fallen into rhythm together over the past 6 months. What had begun as intellectual conversations about art had blossomed into something neither of us had expected a little, I admitted. It's weird to be back. We pulled up to my old apartment building where Maya still lived, having taken over my lease when I moved to Paris. As the taxi drove away, I stood on the sidewalk for a moment, overwhelmed by memories. This was where Mark had first told me he loved me. Right by that street lamp on a rainy October evening. Are you okay? Alexander asked softly, his arm slipping around my waist. Just ghosts? I replied, squeezing his hand. There. Getting fainter, Maya burst through the lobby doors before we could enter, throwing her arms around me. Finally. I thought your flight would never get in. She pulled back, eyeing Alexander with blatant curiosity. Despite our weekly video calls where he'd occasionally appear in the background, this was their first face-to-face meeting. So, you're the famous Alexander, she said, giving him a once-over. Elena didn't mention you were this tall or this handsome. I groaned, but Alexander just laughed. And you're the formidable best friend who threatened to put bed bugs in someone's apartment, he replied smoothly. Elena speaks of you with great admiration. Maya grinned. I like him, she declared to me before turning back to Alexander. Just know that if you hurt her, bed bugs will be the least of my concerns, he finished solemnly. I understand completely. We barely had time to drop our luggage at Maya's apartment before heading to the gallery for the final installation check. The exhibition was opening tomorrow night, and I wanted everything to be perfect. The Bowman Gallery looked exactly as I remembered. High ceilings, polished concrete floors, the scent of fresh paint lingering in the air. What I hadn't expected was the massive vinyl banner hanging above the entrance with my name prominently displayed. Fractured Perspectives, curated by Elena Chin. Surprise! Ma squealed, seeing my stunned expression. Isn't it amazing? Inside, my former boss Rebecca greeted me with a warm hug. The prodigal curator returns, she said affectionately. Paris hasn't stolen you away completely. I hope not. Completely, I smiled. Though Francois had recently hinted at a permanent position at Galerie Lumière, the next few hours were a whirlwind of last-minute adjustments. Alexander quietly assisted, moving pieces under my direction without ego or intrusion. A striking contrast to Mark, who had always made gallery events about himself, dropping investment banking terms to impress artists and collectors. I think we're ready, I finally declared, stepping back to survey the space. More than ready, Rebecca agreed. This is brilliant work. Helena, Paris has been good for you. As we were preparing to leave, Rebecca pulled me aside. I should mention Mark Mitchell RSVP'd for tomorrow's opening. Seeing my expression, she quickly added, I can have security turn him away. I shook my head. No, it's fine. I'm not the same person who left New York a year ago. Outside the gallery, Maya suggested dinner at our favorite Thai restaurant, and we spent the evening trading stories and laughing. It felt strange being back on these familiar streets, like visiting a place I'd once lived in a previous life. Later, lying awake beside Alexander in Maya's guest room, I found myself wondering what Mark would say tomorrow, what he would think of the exhibition, of Alexander, of me. Then I caught myself and smiled in the darkness. A year ago, his opinion had been everything. Now it was barely a footnote. The opening night arrived with the traditional mix of anticipation and chaos. I wore a midnight blue dress that Alexander had helped me pick out in Paris. Elegant but bold, with architectural lines that made me feel both powerful and feminine. You look stunning, Alexander whispered, kissing my temple. As we entered the gallery, The space was already filling with New York's art crowd. Critics, collectors, artists, and socialites circulating with champagne flutes and catalog booklets. Several recognized me from my previous work at the gallery, expressing surprise and delight at my return from Paris. Elena Chin breaking hearts across continents. The voice froze me mid-conversation. I turned slowly to find Mark standing behind me, glass in hand, looking almost exactly as he had a year ago. Perfectly tailored suit, confident smile, though perhaps with new lines around his eyes. "Mark," I acknowledged. "Hewley. I didn't expect to see you at an art opening. I've developed new interests," he replied, his eyes moving to Alexander, who had materialized protectively at my side. "Won't you introduce me to your friend? Alexander Morrow?" Alexander extended his hand. "Professionally, I own Gallery Morrow in Paris." Mark's handshake was deliberately firm. "Mark Mitchell. Elena and I have history. Ancient history." Maya interjected, appearing with remarkable timing. She linked her arm through mine. "Elena, the Times critic is asking for you. Very important." As she started to pull me away, Mark touched my elbow. "Elena, could we talk privately? Just for a moment." I glanced at Alexander, who squeezed my hand reassuringly. "It's your decision," his eyes said silently. 5 minutes. I conceded. In Rebecca's office, as we stepped away, I heard Maya loudly volunteering to tell Alexander all about the time Mark got food poisoning at the company picnic and threw up on his boss's wife. Some battles you fight, some you delegate to tactical specialists like Maya. Rebecca's office was exactly as I remembered. Organized chaos of exhibition catalogs, artist portfolios, and sticky notes covering every surface. The familiar scent of her jasmine tea lingered in the air. Mark closed the door behind us, muffling the exhibition chatter. For a moment, we stood in silence, evaluating each other across a year's worth of distance. "You look different," he finally said. "Happy," I corrected him. "The word you're looking for is happy." A ghost of a smile crossed his face. "That too," he gestured to a chair. "Can we sit?" I perched on the edge of Rebecca's desk, instead maintaining the higher ground. Small power moves I'd learned in Parisian galleries when dealing with difficult collectors. 5 minutes, Mark. What do you want?" He sank into a chair, suddenly looking tired. "I wanted to see you to explain what happened that night." "What's been happening since?" "It's been a year," I said evenly. "Whatever explanation you have is a year too late." "I know," he ran a hand through his hair. A familiar gesture that once would have made me soften, "but I need you to understand it wasn't about Olivia." "Not really? Then what was it about?" Mark's eyes fixed on the floor. "Money?" "It was about money." Despite having suspected this, hearing him admit it still stung. "Go on." "My investment fund was failing. Had been for months before the proposal. I'd made some bad calls, tried to cover losses with riskier investments." His voice was hollow. "Classic death spiral. And Olivia's family had the cash to bail you out." I finished for him. He nodded. "Her father offered to invest 8 million. The condition was that I make an honest woman of his daughter." His laugh was bitter. His exact words. "So, you staged a proposal at your own birthday party? How romantic." "It wasn't supposed to happen that way." Mark leaned forward. "Her father was pressuring me for a date. Olivia suggested the party. Said it would look spontaneous, genuine. I was desperate. Elena about to lose everything. I felt a cold clarity washing over me. And what about me? Where did I fit into this grand plan? I was going to tell you after. Find a way to explain." He looked up. His expression pained. "I never meant for you to see it happen. You were going to dump me after securing your financial future. That's so much better. I cared about you, Elena," he insisted. "Not enough to be honest. Not enough to find another way." There was no other way. For the first time, anger flashed in his eyes. "You Don't understand what it's like in my world. Reputation is everything. 1. Failure and you're finished. Your world. I repeated softly. That's always been the problem, hasn't it? I was never really part of your world. Mark's expression shifted. That's not what I meant. It's exactly what you meant. The gallery assistant from a middle class family in Queens was never going to fit into the Mitchell family legacy. Kept my voice steady. Olivia understood the game, the social obligations, the family connections, the appearances. That's not fair, he protested, but weakly. What's not fair is using someone for 3 years while pining for someone else. My voice hardened. What's not fair is hiding a job offer because it didn't fit your narrative. A flash of guilt crossed his face at the mention of Paris. I'm sorry about that. I thought you'd choose it over me. You were right. I would have. I gestured toward the gallery beyond the office door, and I should thank you for it. Paris gave me everything New York couldn't. Mark's eyes narrowed slightly. Including him, the French guy. Alexander, I corrected. And yes, among other things. Is it serious? The question caught me off guard. That's none of your business. I still think about you, Elena. His voice softened all the time. After Olivia left. Wait. Olivia left? I thought her father was investing in your fund. Mark's bitter laugh told me everything. The moment the engagement was announced, her father transferred the first $1 million, just enough to keep creditors at bay. The rest would come after the wedding. He shook his head. 3 days later, Olivia admitted she'd never intended to go through with it. She'd met someone in London, some duke's son or whatever. The whole proposal was her idea of closure. The irony wasn't lost on me. So, she used you like you used me. I deserved it, he admitted. But what I didn't deserve was losing you. A knock at the door interrupted us. It opened slightly. And Chloe's face appeared. Sorry to interrupt, but she spotted me and her expression brightened. Elena, you're really here. She rushed in, embracing me tightly before pulling back with a slightly embarrassed look at her brother. Sorry, but Rebecca said you're needed in the main gallery. Some critic from Art News has questions only you can answer. I nodded, grateful for the interruption. I should go. Mark stood. We're not finished. Actually, we are, I said, heading for the door. Elena. Please. He grabbed my wrist, his grip desperate. Let go of me, Mark. My voice was quiet but firm. To my surprise, Chloe stepped between us. Mark, enough. Her tone was sharper than I'd ever heard it. You don't get to do this. Not again. He released me, looking stunned at his sister's intervention. Chloe turned to me. I'm so sorry, Elena, for everything. For not telling you about Olivia when she first came back, for letting him manipulate both of us. She shot her brother a disappointed look. What he's not telling you is that father cut him off completely after the Olivia fiasco. He's been working for me at my event company for the past 3 months. Mark's face reened. Chloe, that's not what. Not relevant. She shook her head. It's all relevant. The way you treated Elena. The way you've treated everyone. He turned back to me. Your exhibition is beautiful, by the way. Genuinely impressive. Thank you, I said oddly, touched by her support. I'd like to host your after party, she continued. I treat. Consider it a small apology for my brother's behavior. Before I could respond, Mark interrupted. This is between Elena and me, Chloe. It doesn't concern you. Chloe's laugh was sharp. Guess what, big brother? I'm officially adopting Elena as my sister instead. You're demoted. Despite everything, I found myself smiling. I accept the sisterhood. I told Chloe and the after party. As I walked out, Mark called after me. This doesn't change how I feel, Elena. I paused at the doorway, looking back at the man I'd once built my world around. No, but it changes how I feel. Goodbye, Mark. I returned to the gallery where Alexander waited, his eyes finding mine across the crowded room, a silent question in them. I smiled, a genuine smile that reached all the way to my heart and made my way toward my future. The rooftop of the Whitney Museum glowed with string lights under a perfect New York summer evening. Chloe had transformed the space into something magical for the exhibition's after-party. Delicate paper lanterns bobbed in the gentle breeze. Jazz quartet played softly in the corner, and champagne flowed freely among the art world's elite. To Elena Chin, Rebecca raised her glass, whose fractured perspectives exhibition has already sold 12 pieces and garnered a full-page review in tomorrow's Times. Cheers erupted around me. I smiled, still processing the evening's success. Not just professionally, but personally, standing my ground with Mark had felt like the final piece of a puzzle clicking into place. Speech, someone called, and suddenly all eyes were on me. I took a deep breath. A year ago, I stood on a different rooftop in the city and watched my life fall apart. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Most knew some version of the story. I thought I was losing everything that mattered. But sometimes what looks like an ending is actually the beginning. My eyes found Maya, who gave me an encouraging nod. I want to thank everyone who believed in this exhibition and in me, especially when I wasn't sure I believed in myself. Rebecca for taking a chance on a curator who fled the country. Laughter bubbled through the crowd. Maya for being the kind of friend who offers both unconditional support and elaborate revenge schemes. Maya raised her glass with a wicked grin. Francois and the team at Gallery Lumiere who welcomed me to Paris, and Alexander. My voice softened as I found his eyes across the circle, who showed me that true partnership means supporting each other's light, not dimming it to make your own shine brighter. As conversations resumed and the jazz quartet launched into a new song, I made my way to the edge of the rooftop where Maya was setting up what looked suspiciously like small paper boats. What are you doing? I asked, eyeing the tiny fleet. Remember when we burned Mark's photos in my fireplace? She handed me a pen and a small square of rice paper. I thought we could do something similar, but more symbolic. Burn down the Whitney. She rolled her eyes. Write down something you want to let go of. Then we'll put them in these little lanterns and release them. She gestured to the night sky. Symbolic. Release, fresh start, all that. Therapeutic jazz. Where did you get this idea? Fine. It was Chloe's suggestion. We've been texting. He shrugged. She's surprisingly cool when not enabling her brother. I laughed and took the paper, thinking carefully before writing. Fear of being left behind. Maya peeked over my shoulder. Deep. I wrote men who don't text back after 3 good dates. We placed our papers in the tiny lanterns, lit the small candles inside, and watched as they rose slowly into the dark sky, joining a constellation of city lights. Feels good, doesn't it? Maya asked softly. Letting go. It does. I linked my arm through hers. Thank you for everything this past year. Please. This past decade. She squeezed my arm. Heads up. Your ex is heading this way. And he looks sober, which is even more annoying. I turned to see Mark approaching, dressed more casually than earlier, hands in his pockets. He nodded at Maya, who gave him a sardonic salute before tactfully slipping away. Congratulations on the exhibition, he said. It really is brilliant. Thank you. An awkward silence stretched between us. I'm moving to Chicago next month, he finally said. Fresh start. Dad's got a colleague they're willing to give me another chance. That's good, I replied, genuinely meaning it. I hope it works out for you. Chloe says I need therapy. He laughed softly. She's probably right. She usually is. Another silence, less awkward this time. I'm sorry, Elena, for everything. You deserved better. I know, I said simply. He nodded, accepting this. You're French guy. He seems like a good man. He is. Mark took a deep breath. Be happy. Okay. That's all I wanted to say. As he walked away, I felt the last tendrils of our complicated history finally release their hold on my heart. Not with anger or regret, but with something like peace. Everything okay? Alexander appeared at my side, handing me a fresh glass of champagne. Perfect, actually. I took his hand. Have I shown you the view? From this side? We walked to the edge of the rooftop where the entire Manhattan skyline spread before us. A galaxy of lights and possibilities. I have news, I said, turning to face him. Rebecca offered me a partnership. She wants to open a sister gallery focused on emerging European artists with branches in both New York and Paris. His eyes lit up. Elena, that's incredible. It would mean splitting my time between both cities. A lot of travel, a lot of work. Sounds exhausting, he said, his smile growing. Luckily, my gallery has been considering a New York expansion for some time. Perhaps we could coordinate our schedules. I laughed. Are you proposing a professional partnership? Alexander Morrow? Perhaps more than professional, he said softly, his eyes holding mine. If you're open to the idea. Someone called my name a collector wanting to discuss a purchase. The night's obligations weren't finished. Go, Alexander said. We have time to figure out the details. As I moved through the party, accepting congratulations and discussing future projects, I caught glimpses of my new life taking shape. Maya and Chloe laughing together by the bar. Rebecca introducing me to influential collectors. As my partner Alexander deep in conversation with a French artist we both admired. Later, as the party wounded down, I found myself alone for a moment, looking out over the city that had once felt like everything to me. New York was still magnificent, still full of promise. But now it was just one star in a constellation of possibilities. Penny, for your thoughts, Alexander said, joining me. I was just thinking about that night a year ago, I replied. How I thought I was watching my dreams collapse when Mark proposed to Olivia. And now, I turned to him smiling. Now I realize I was watching someone else's dream. It took glowing it to find my own. He brushed a strand of hair from my face. And have you found your dream? I looked around at the success of my exhibition, the new partnership, the friends who had become family, and finally back to Alexander, a man who saw me clearly and valued what he saw. I think I'm just beginning to, I said, taking his hand as we turned to face the bright wide open and future together.